Hello and welcome back to another Dare to Game video. Today we are going to be revisiting Hogwarts Legacy. Now that we've had some time to reflect and cool down from the initial hype, I wanted to try it again, after nearly a year, and see if I still liked it. So I re-downloaded Hogwarts Legacy, and started a new playthrough. And, to make a long story short, yes, I do still like it. Hopping back in felt great, and made me appreciate the game even more than the first time I played it. It's very refreshing to have that experience with the game, as honestly it is super rare these days with open world single player games. Now I do think that a major advantage this game has is just how unique it is. There really is not a lot of competition in the realm of open world action RPGs set in the wizarding world of Harry Potter, so comparisons are slim. But the game stands up to scrutiny in my opinion. The world is very large and never feels empty, as each little hamlet holds its own unique charm. There are plenty of enemies to encounter, which is great, as the combat in this game is a major strength. There are tons of optional side activities, and if you aren't into checklists, you can mostly skip them if you want. It genuinely will not hamper your experience much at all. Just as a note, since we are now a year out from release, and it's a decent time to dip the measuring stick into the water, so we're gonna see how well the game performed, and as it happens, it performed exceptionally well. It's a single-player game with no multiplayer functionality, and a set story which negates endless play capacity. It doesn't have Quidditch, and as a story-driven experience, it does come to an end, so there is no gameplay excuse for why the game performed as well as it did. It's just a high-quality game that is well made, and performed very well because of that. How well, you might be asking? Well, in 2023, its first year of being released, Hogwarts Legacy sold over 22 million copies. That is more than Cyberpunk 2077 and Elden Ring's first years combined. So as far as a big AAA open world game, Hogwarts Legacy is one of the most successful of all time. Which brings to mind the elephant in the room, the absolutely failed boycott of Hogwarts Legacy that dominated the media for months leading up to the game's release. Now, a huge part of me believes that the boycott is at least partially why the game performed as well as it did. The game had months of free media, keeping it trending on social media 24/7 because of a ravenous hatred constantly being spewed at the game. A relatively small group of people thought that they were going to wield the power of a public shame and bullying campaign to stop this game, but for all their efforts, all they managed was tons and tons of free publicity, and for all of that, the game soared. The first couple weeks after release already showed the game's performance was going to exceed expectations, but once everyone watched the streams and the YouTube videos and saw how good the game looked and performed, that was it. The game was a smash hit. And then, in the fall, when the Nintendo Switch port launched, that was the final nail in the coffin for the protesters and boycotters that wanted this game to fail, because the game has solidified itself as one of the best-selling single-player titles of all time. And all of that isn't even to consider how well the game was received. Obviously, user consensus is typically quite high for this game. The game sits very favorably on Metacritic with a 8.5 out of 10, with over 4,000 reviews. The game is overwhelmingly popular, with over 80% of all reviews being very positive, 12% being mixed, and only 8% being negative. And the lion's share of those 8% are all people calling J.K. Rowling a transphobe and complaining about all the talking points that were used in the arguments for the boycott. Very few of the existing negative reviews, that I could find at least, are actually complaints about the quality of the game, and there is a really good reason for that. The game is actually quite good. We won't have a full list of the awards that this game has garnered for at least a couple months, but it has won many, and has been nominated for many more, including many technical awards for narrative, music, art design, game design, animation, artistic achievement, among many others, as well as several Game of the Year nominations, including the 2023 Steam Awards. And all of this for good reason. As I've already said multiple times, the game is good. It just holds up. Typically when I do something like this, where I go back to a single-player game after a year of inactivity away from the game, I immediately start to recognize the flaws that I missed at first, and groan when I get to the parts that I remember being annoying or boring, or I realize just how on the tracks the game is. This isn't to say I don't enjoy single-player games, I love them, but a common flaw is how long most of them take to let you start enjoying the game your way. With some games, you are a third of the way through the narrative before they take the training wheels off and let you actually get into into it. I understand this as a narrative tool, and a way to stem the complaints that a game is too confusing or not user-friendly, but for those of us with a competence level at or greater than an average 5th grader, it's easy to get annoyed. And yes, Hogwarts Legacy does have a tutorial section that I think is about twice as long as it should be. I genuinely think we could do with a lot less forced hand-holding in video games in general. Just give us the tools and drop the curtain. However, despite being trapped in the tutorial as the devs wanted me, I still enjoyed myself. The music, the narrative, the dialogue, it's all so compelling. And this is coming from someone who has played the game before, so it's not my first time experiencing it, and I'm not even the biggest Harry Potter fan. It's just a really interesting story that is so well put together that I don't mind slowly ambling around through exposition as the game's mechanics slowly unfold to me at a pace that would put an infant to sleep. And that is the closest thing I have to a complaint about my 2024 experience in Hogwarts Legacy thus far. Once you get through the sorting process and Hogwarts opens up, the magic is there, at your fingertips, and the exploration can begin. And then, once you finish your first classes and your first expedition to Hogsmeade, it's exponentially better as the huge open world opens up, and you learn enough spells to get around. It just feels like you are living out the dreams of so many young children of the last nearly 30 years at this point. The world is so vibrant and alive, crawling with lore, baddies, and breathtaking sights, all interspersed with narrative beats and plot points that make everything feel important enough to drive you onward, while still trivial enough to allow for time-wasting exploration, which I love. The combat is so much fun. I'm not normally a magic guy, it's just not my thing. Give me a bow or a sword or even better a battle axe and point me towards any problem and I'll negotiate my way through it using the charm and charisma of my steel against their flimsy skin and brittle bones. But the magic in this game actually makes you feel powerful. Whether it's calling in an ancient magic strike, freezing and then exploding an enemy, or transforming a goblin into an explosive barrel only to immediately throw him into the face of a troll, you actually have substantial power. And that is something magic-centric games pretty much never get right. Typically, video game magic might as well be a laser gun. You cast a spell, it's slow-moving and extremely limited in range. It does no more damage than an arrow might, and typically has very little weight behind it. Compare the use of Igni in The Witcher 3 or Flames in Skyrim to casting Incendio in Hogwarts Legacy. It is a night and day difference, and that is the most generic copy-paste example of magic that I could possibly use for this game. All of the rest of the spells are infinitely better than using Incendio. The story has its highs and lows, with Sebastian Sallow's story being a high point and the pensive retrieval missions arguably being a low point. That is, except for the fact that the story is quite good and very compelling, and being able to watch and reveal at the end of each pensive mission really does make it all worthwhile. Hell, even the random side missions and fetch quests are engaging. Whether you're rescuing a goblin's prized paintings from his racist brethren, or defeating a trained troll that's threatening its owner's village, they are just plain fun. And this is often mostly likely because they are combat-centric, and the combat is very enjoyable. But I won't fault an action game that entertains me by pushing me into little pockets of action all around the map. Oh, and did I mention the map? It's absolutely huge. It is a good thing the map has flue powder, travel, and high-speed broomsticks, because walking this map is absolutely insane. It makes the trip from Whiterun to Solitude on foot feel like a casual stroll from the Hanging Tree to Crow's Perch. Making your way through the Scottish Highlands in Hogwarts Legacy does a great job of showing why magic users utilize so many different forms of transit. They do not cluster together. Think about it. In real life, humans get around with just a handful of transportation options. We've got cars, walking, bicycles, and several different forms of public transit like buses and trains and stuff. Wizards in the world of Harry Potter have flue powder, apparition, magical beasts, broomsticks, portkeys, vanishing cabinets, as well as every single one of the Muggle options that we have in the real world. It's just funny to think how what obviously happened as a narrative device, introduced slowly over time, has resulted in a world where much of the world building exists around the countless forms of transportation that the wizarding world has developed. That's just a funny thought that I had while I was thinking about the transportation in this game, if albeit a slightly off-topic tangent. In any case, the scope and scale of this game far exceeds the average in my opinion, and it also follows the 30-second rule of open-world games. The map has tons of locations, enemies, and activities densely layered throughout it, so you never feel like you've been traveling too long. Despite the enormous size of the game's map. It's just a testament to how well made the game is that it feels so effortless to get lost in the world and find yourself far off the beaten path chasing butterflies or dueling trolls. Also, as a funny note, I just want to point out how violent this game is. Now obviously, if you are constantly seeking out combat for fun, your experience will curve towards the much higher and probably even slightly ridiculous side of the video game violence scale. But even if you are just playing the game like a normal person, you have likely noticed that your player character, a 5th year student, so a 15 to 16-year-old, kills so many people. It's hilarious to me how much emphasis is put on the unforgivable curses, when nearly every spell in the game is unironically super fatal. Does it matter if someone uses Avada Kedavra on you, or will being blown into shreds by Bombarda have the same effect? Or being levitated into the air before being smashed into the ground with the might of Kratos? If the end result is a puddle of goblin goop or wizard juice, what difference does the spell make? I'm telling you, next time you play the game, stay conscious of the number of enemies, many of which are just human beings, that you personally kill. It is literally, easily, in the hundreds, if not thousands. You will likely, in one playthrough, kill more living beings than Grindelwald and Voldemort killed together in their entire Dark Wizard careers. I just wish that by the end of the game, everyone was literally terrified of the monster that you have become. Because even staying as on the light side as possible, we are still talking about mass murder. But all of that is just to say the game holds up very well. It achieved ridiculous levels of success and it deserved it. The story, world, voice acting, art direction, combat, music, and nearly everything else is all done so well that it is hard to honestly compare to most other games. Anyone calling it a Ubisoft clone has not given the game a fair shake, as this is easily one of the best open world games of all time, and I honestly think, likely, my game of the year for 2023. But that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it somewhat interesting. Thanks for watching and have a nice day, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching another Dare to Game video. If you liked this video, please leave a like and a comment. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you like my content and would like to support this channel, consider becoming a member today for as little as $1.99 a month. It makes a huge difference. But in any case, thanks for watching and have a nice day. I'll see you next time.